anyone who thinks they know what markets or what surface areas are going to be relevant in 5 years from now, I think is totally delusional.
Just because there's more startups doesn't mean there's going to be more successful products. Just because there's more videos doesn't mean we're all going to consume them more.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a framework for like what happens with all that. Do they just turn into like tons of blogs and nobody reads?
And now OpenAI has sort of proven that nothing is safe. They came out with Sora, and now they've got their second sort of massive hit app, #1 in the App Store now for like the past month. They are clearly just like willing to play in any category and play to win. And they've proven that they can do it. So is any category safe right now in the app layer?
I'm Michael Mignano from Lightspeed, and this is Out of Office. Today on the show, I'm hanging out with the one and only Semil Shah, founder of Haystack, venture partner at Lightspeed, and one of the greatest seed investors ever. Semil was one of the earliest backers in companies like Figma, DoorDash, and Instacart. Recently, he and I hosted a talk on seed investing, prediction markets, and AI with a bunch of our friends from the local seed investor community. And we held it at the iconic music venue, Joe's Pub, in New York City, one of my favorites. To get our heads in the right place and prepare some of our talking points, we met up before the show to do a few laps around the block and get the conversation started.
There he is. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Beautiful fall day.
Yes.
This is an amazing time of year to be in New York. So
When did you get in?
got in yesterday, 24 hours ago.
Oh, you got here yesterday.
Less than 24 hours ago.
So one thing you should know is that the episode that you and I filmed in Montauk for Generative Now has inspired this whole new podcast direction.
That was my master plan.
We sort of talked about the last time we did one of these. There's so much noise. There's so much content. Everything looks and feels the same. The stuff that I am finding myself drawn towards is the stuff that looks and feels different.
But to me, the answer is very simple, and it's sort of rooted in a Rick Rubin parable, which is you create only for yourself. And it was clear to me for years that you were doing a podcast and you were doing it every week and you're having a lot of people on and you were getting burned out. And like right now you have a lot of energy, you're doing fewer episodes and you're zagging while everyone's zigging.
I do.
Rick Rubin would be proud of you.
I know, if I ever am fortunate enough to meet him.
Well, he's making the rounds.
I know, believe me, I see him all over Twitter. We talked at times about like TVPN. Obviously they're doing something that's really interesting. There are other podcasts that are trying to do different formats. What do you think about this whole like launch video thing for products and apps that's happening right now?
When I started investing, it's basically history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
When I started investing, sandwich video.
Oh,
we
amazing.
invested in a number of things where sandwich was part of the round, and the entrepreneurs loved the videos he created.
Right.
So one example I can share is, gosh, I'm gonna forget the name now and sound like an old investor, but this credit card with a Bluetooth chip in it, right around 2013, Coin.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, COIN. Sandwich did an amazing video for that.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, videos are really engaging, most engaging media format.
Yeah. And the videos do seem to get more and more ridiculous, more and more high production value. Of course, I'm sure so many of them now are made with AI, but it almost feels like you cannot launch right now if you do not have a video, a $50,000 video to go with it.
To me, it's like this will happen every 3 to 5 years as a cycle.
Yeah.
And people will try new things, and we could be talking about it until we stop investing and we're old. It will always be the case.
But I guess I have to ask, we're talking about how if you have a podcast right now, if you want to stand out, you've got to zig when others are zagging. It feels like we're going to reach a breaking point where you're going to have to do something other than a launch video if you want to stand out. Right? Eventually, the launch video will be just noise, and you actually have to do something different if you want to break out.
Yeah, and I think that's a piece of it where you have to do guerrilla stuff or offline stuff, and all the same zig versus zag rules apply. And it'll just go in a cycle every time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, consumers and prosumers only have so much time and space for certain things. And the denominator of products being launched is just more competitive. So people will try all sorts of things, but I think it will amplify the right products. I don't think it will make a bad product or service get in the marketplace.
Yeah. It's just interesting, like how much startups are willing to spend on marketing now. Like the old adage was, don't spend a dime on marketing until you have product market fit.
It's an old debate, right? Is content king or is distribution king?
Right. This corner here, Cooper and East 4th Street, this is a special place for me because my first job in startups was at Aviary. and our office was right here at Cooper Square.
Oh, nice.
I think that office turned into the Instagram office, but yeah, I would walk around here all the time. In fact, actually, when we started my company, Anchor, we sort of planned the first phase of it right near where we just walked by a few minutes ago.
What was the exact coordinate? In a coffee shop or what?
No, so a little while ago we passed these like chessboard tables.
Yeah.
And my co-founder Nir and I would sit down in there and just we
Amazing.
were just like scheme at the chessboard tables for hours.
Incredible.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a cool area. So yeah, back to the videos. I just feel like this has become such a standard part of the playbook.
To me, especially with generative media now and the cost of that going down, you just have to assume everyone's going to do it, not just even
Right.
launch apps. It could be enterprise apps. It could be,
Oh my God.
you name it. And so the cost of it's just going to go down. The distribution on social channels is freer. And so what happens in that world is creativity and awareness continues to be rewarded, but if you don't have a good product or service behind it, we're still back at square one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess we're going to see even more of these launch videos because eventually the AI models are going to be so good. You're just gonna
and remember too, when you're doom scrolling late at night and stuff, you can only ingest so many videos.
Yeah.
So they're all going to be out there, and what's served to you, TBD.
Yeah, for sure.
Like in my world of investing, I think it'll go beyond consumer, and that's what's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, since you're like an investor in Pika and like have access to all these other models, like where do you think this goes in terms of like regular folks at startups who maybe don't have these skills or would have outsourced it to a marketing agency or hired someone as a videographer? Where do you think this goes from a startup cost center?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there have been AI video companies around for a couple of years now. You mentioned Pika, there's Runway, there's Luma, there's some great companies. The bet that we made on Pika was always about the idea that consumer and empowering everyone, like ordinary people, was always going to be a much bigger opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think Sora, OpenAI's Sora, has kind of brought that to the foreground now. Like Sora now that the app is out, it seems like the first time that regular non-tech people are aware of generative video. And it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I can make a video of anything. I can make a video of my friend. So to me, this feels like the moment that generative video kind of crosses the chasm. And now I think it's just going to accelerate more and more. You're starting to see regular people upload these videos to Sora and then cross-publish them to Instagram.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time, especially as the models get better, that it'll start to work its way into like SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, maybe enterprises, like you said. Like this feels like the tipping point, in my opinion.
Yeah, you take a startup and they raise $5 million and they want to maybe spend 10% of that on their launch, of which a majority of that is on video production and collateral, and we've just completely compressed the cost of that.
Totally.
And the time.
The time.
I still think what still remains though is the 24 hours in the day. So on the creation side, it's very disruptive.
Yeah.
On the consumption side, I'm still trying to sort out, and I'd be curious what you think too. Just because there's more startups doesn't mean there's gonna be more successful products. Just because there's more videos doesn't mean we're all gonna consume them more.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a framework for like what happens with all that. Do they just turn into like tons of blogs and nobody reads?
That's the thing. This is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like there's actually got to be some other tactic. Like soon the world's going to be saturated in startup launch videos.
I see, yeah.
And to break through, you're going to have to do something else. I don't know. Is somebody going to take out actually spend the $50,000 on a billboard?
Well,
Probably not.
What would
That's not
Rick
gonna break.
Rubin say, right? How do you go to the first fan and the second fan and the third fan
Right.
in an analog way?
Yeah, right. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Some smart startup founder somewhere is going to do something different and get our attention. Maybe they're going to generate Suno songs.
Yeah.
And get.
I mean, I know
get
at
into the
least
top.
with my kids, and if Mr. Beast just did like a 10-minute video, like, watch me, like, whoever leaves this island last gets $1 million done by AI video, they would watch it every single day.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that's it. All right. So we made it.
We made it.
We're here at Joe's Pub. So I feel like you're the brains behind this party that we've now thrown for the third year tonight.
It's a merging of master plans. I mean, I'm from here. I love coming back. Been actively investing in the seed ecosystem in New York, continuing to do more and more and more, spending more time here, obviously having a lot of fun in the city, and thought about your podcast and doing this. And, I think we tried to do this, like 6 months ago? and had a little bit of a scheduling snafu, so we finally made it. And I think the part of it was to just invite people for, in the style of Rick Rubin, do what other people aren't doing. Not go on Zoom, have people come hang out, not do a ton of scripted content, like hang out and have fun. And that's kind of the goal for tonight, is just for people to create an environment for people to like meet their friends, meet a new friend, have fun, and like we'll do it annually. That's something I'd love to do.
Pretty iconic room.
I'm excited. I'm excited too, and I think everyone's going to have a blast, and I can't wait. And I think it's cool for podcasts to do this kind of stuff where puts a little bit of a face to a name. Like maybe there are people here who have watched your podcast who you haven't met really.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
And like you got to close the loop somehow, especially when everyone's online and everyone's on Zoom.
Should we go on in?
Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the app layer. I think something that has come kind of full circle from something you and I talked about a long time ago, wrappers. We talked about wrappers being this like area of building right now that's totally defenseless. Then we switched to thinking, oh, actually, no, it's great. If you build a great app and people love it, doesn't matter if it's a wrapper, you've got a business. And now OpenAI has sort of proven that nothing is safe. They came out with Sora, and now they've got their second sort of massive hit app, #1 in the App Store now for like the past month. They are clearly just like willing to play in any category and play to win. And they've proven that they can do it. So maybe running it back to something we've talked about maybe 2 years ago, like, is any category safe right now in the app layer?
I do think we should touch on this every time we do this, and things change really fast. And so, it's fall 2025. And I think of OpenAI, when you take the combination of the foundational technology, the applications that they've been able to build and ship fast on top of it, and the fact that you have Sam running it, who's not your average, oh, I just backed into this startup idea founder. It's a serious threat. Now, typically before OpenAI existed, people would say, oh, OpenAI or whatever disruptive company or incumbent company said we're going to do X, Y, and Z. That was like vaporware. They were trying to scare the market or play PR or dissuade other people from doing things.
Yeah.
Knowing Sam from before personally, and just like everyone's heard a lot of stories about him, he's not kind of like that. He could say we're going to do something and actually do it.
Right.
And he's delivered on so much already, not just him, but him and his team, that they get a lot more credit than previous incumbents or disruptors. Right. I think you got to start there. I think number 2 is a question of like, classic VC framework of what's a low-hanging fruit or like high-value fruit.
Yeah.
And I think when we had talked earlier, we were saying, oh, well, there's low-hanging fruit here, and that's not really going to be attractive to them. They're going to go after the more precious fruit on the tree. I don't think we really know yet. I think it's an open question.
Like what's worth it to them and what's not.
What's worth it to them or not. Clearly, when you have generative media and the components that make generative movie or video, like we were talking about before, I think those are core components. Static imagery, moving imagery, sound, voice, avatars, all those things. Clearly, into making something like Sora, all those things really matter. Are they going to do a vertical AI app in finance and sell it to all the big banks? I don't know. I think that's a bet a lot of VCs are making right now.
That they will do that.
That they may or may not. I think some VCs will say, I'll bet that Sam and you guys, you won't do that. And I think some VCs are saying, hey, I'm going to pass on that new investment round. I think they are going to do that.
Yeah.
And this is sort of akin to like when I started investing, people would ask, would Facebook do it? Would Google do it? Would all this stuff? I think it's a valid question for an investor to ask. It's also like, hey, you want an entrepreneur who wants to take on that challenge. The difference is a little bit nuanced. In the era before, could Facebook do it? Could Google do it? Could Salesforce do it or whatever? You're betting on these teams of people and these large organizations that are set up as typical Fortune 500 companies that would, break off a team and do the 2 pizza rule, for their team and put out something. And generally, if you were an investor or a founder in those startups that were taking on the 2 pizza teams, you'd probably beat them.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on the thing and you're incentivized to win and you're attracting a certain audience. I really don't know if that analogy holds true today. can that two pizza team at OpenAI just crush your startup investment or crush your company or your dream? Or just put a chilling effect on the fundraising for it, which effectively de facto kills your company.
Right.
Very valid question. And I think a lot of that has to do with Sam. If it were just somebody else who we don't know anything about, maybe we wouldn't know. But this guy has meticulously and methodically delivered on so much.
He'll do it.
And maybe his batting rate isn't 1,000. I'm not saying he's going to hit every ball and make contact. But he's not batting 300 either.
Right.
He's
batting higher than 300.
He's got way higher than
right. But how do you even know like what these categories are? I mean, you mentioned finance, but you could say this about any category. Oh, video, like not going to touch it. Finance, not going to touch it. Like what? It almost feels like you can't make any bet. You can't make any categorical bet at this point because nothing is safe at the app layer. Do you just bet on people?
I think as an investor, when you're taking money from LPs, this is just the investor view. We can get to the founder view in a second. You're essentially saying, pay me LP to allocate and build a portfolio for you to take on this risk. And so you may look at the tree and say, well, here's some low-hanging fruit. Here's some high-value fruit. I'm going to make bets up and down the tree and not be tied to one, obviously backing great people.
Yeah.
But you're paid to do that. So you can control the inputs in. I think just sitting on the sidelines for that, you're not doing your job if you're managing a large fund.
This is what you get paid to do.
I mean, probably the greatest venture capitalist for our time, Peter Thiel, basically said that the economic value created from this disruption will be greater than the internet.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to refute Peter Thiel, be my guest.
Yeah.
But if you're not playing, if you're at a big fund and not playing in that space, then what are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
The other part as a founder, I think, is that if you want to step into this arena, forget about the investors. If you want to step into this arena and you're competing against someone like Sam and the team at OpenAI, I mean, I just don't mean to make it about Sam, but he's sort of setting the metronome there. You have to be willing to ride a roller coaster with higher waves. And any day, have somebody come after your lunch just because they're bored, just because it's on the roadmap, just because you put out a press release. It doesn't matter.
And you see this show up in so many different ways. You see it show up in the decision-making process of VCs. You see it show up in the roadmap of the founders. You see it show up in product launches and announcements. We talked about the launch videos upstairs. If you're going to do something and you're going to put it out into the real world, now you're going to do it in a much bigger way than you would have done in sort of a pre-SAM era. Because you need to put your stake in the ground and you need to, and it's like go big or go home.
To me, the fundamental question is OpenAI such a different company and executing at such a different rate? And is the fundamental core technology and insights that they have from distributing that core technology so unique that it breaks that two pizza startup rule where you and I would fund anybody that we really liked that was going after Salesforce, piece of Salesforce.
Yeah.
We would bet against it.
Yeah.
Because we would say, we know the people, I don't have to pick on Salesforce, but just say, we know that two pizza team, they're not going to work as hard and they're not going to love the problem as much.
It's funny, for so many years, OpenAI was associated with technology, right? It's this research lab. They were doing this AI research before anyone else was. Now I think about them more as just like raw execution machine.
Well, one of my favorite things to ask when I'm just out and about or going to restaurants or meeting people when I'm traveling is like, hey, do you use AI? Okay, most of them do. What got you into it? And the entry points into it are dating, relationship advice, therapy, home family organization, planning things with friends. They're not the stuff you and I talk about.
Right.
And so the entry points of where this technology is seeping and how it's changing behavior is just basic consumer behavior. I mean, I have so many friends who are using it for like any kind of relationship advice, whether with a family member, with a loved one, with a potential loved one, and it's just a way to like have a high fidelity conversation, have it remember state, have it remember certain characters in your story. And pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a consumer product. I've talked a lot, including with my last guest, about kind of the implications and the creator economy and all that stuff. But like, what about social media? I mean, what does Sora mean for the future of
Sora is the the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts, right?
Okay.
Putting everything together, putting audio, putting video, putting static images, putting moving images together, putting it in a prompt where you can almost vibe code it.
Yeah.
It puts everything together. It's like pulling a great recipe together.
Yeah.
Putting a great song together where you get all the percussion, harmony, melody, everything together, and boom, everyone gets it. Everyone wants to make one. Everyone wants to do satire or make fun of their friends or doing a political ad that would have cost them $500,000, cost them $50,000, maybe even less. So to me, it's like, it's kind of something you mentioned earlier, which is crossing over that tipping point into generative media where you put a bunch of things together to create a very powerful output. And I think the implications of that are, we could sit here for hours talking about it, from, you texting your college buddies funny videos to rag on a friend, all the way to like one of your enterprise companies like Macroscope. If they're going to do a launch video at some point, of course they're going to do it themselves. They're not going to hire someone to do it.
Right. Yeah, it does feel like these networks, these platforms, they had their lanes. TikTok was the video one, Instagram was the photo one. And now with generative media, the lines are getting really blurry.
Well, those end up becoming channels. So the way I think about those apps is like there's channels on your like over the top television box.
Yeah.
So Snapchat is just a channel in your Comcast or your Turner Media, or your New York Media cable box. So people will go to the channels that they like based on the algorithms that they're served. So a lot of people like going to YouTube because of their algorithms trained. A lot of people like using TikTok because it already knows them so fast.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people just scroll between all of them. They end up becoming channels. And so when we were growing up and we had regular terrestrial TV, what were we looking at? 13 public channels.
Right.
Probably
so these are channels.
Yeah.
You think the format's going to
have
converge?
Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram, right? We come up with 13.
But you think the format is converging and it's all going to converge around these generative formats?
I think if you're creating generative media content, whether it's static or moving or whatever music, you're going to distribute it everywhere.
Of course.
And so you just don't care where you want to meet the viewer where they are. The cost of distributing it's basically free. You can pay it for any metrics or telemetry on the back end, and you're good.
Yeah. But do you think we're now entering a phase where regular users, regular people, mostly creating content manually with their cameras, like is Sora the moment now that the video is so good? And, there was this other tweet that we saw yesterday around Suno passing the Turing test. Like, have we reached the point where regular people are now going to be doing most of their creation?
If we're not there today, we're within months.
Months.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it just...
You post Instagram, right? Like you post your food photos and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We should post I'm
a different bird in the sense of like when I'm posting and like I know a lot of people online and I meet them offline, and I want to be explicit if I post like AI generated content.
Yeah.
It's everything I post is just my own.
Right.
But I think in a future world for sure. And I thought about like putting a lot of my own like cooking photos online and enhancing them away and like having the recipes come up.
Oh,
and I'll probably just say like I put it together with AI, but I do think as a creator you have a little bit of a duty. It just takes a few words in the disclaimer to say, hey, I generated this with this, and
Yeah. Again, sort of back to the top of this conversation around the defensibility of the app layer. How do you play it as an investor? How do you play it as a seed investor? And obviously, we're going to go over a bunch of other seed investors in a bit, but like, how do you think about it?
And we'll talk about it more up there, but I think the teaser I would say is that like you can pick a wave that's coming as an investor, and you can back many surfers on that wave. But I think when the wave is like this, where it's really large, and you have someone like Sam and team, and Anthropic and team behind it moving with a big capital stack, you have to be a little more selective about the surfers you back taking on that wave.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of them are going to crash out, and they can be great.
So it's more of a people-oriented bet.
It's not just that. It's more like, how do you take your LP capital and construct a portfolio that different surfers on different parts of the wave can make it to shore.
Yeah.
right? Because really that's what you're doing. You're giving capital to that founder, to that creator, and you're basically doing one of these to say, can you ride the wave to shore?
Yeah. Cool. Well, we're gonna talk to a bunch more seed investors upstairs. We're thinking about it. It'll be good to get some of theirs. All right.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it.
Hi, everybody. You guys probably know Mike, I don't know, through the tech world, the investing world, perhaps. Maybe you know him as the founder of Anchor, which then sold to Spotify. Yes, and now he's a partner at Lightspeed Ventures. Big deal. We're all here because we either know Mike or Semil. Semil I just met about 30 minutes ago. Seems chill. No, but clearly his reputation as one of the goats of seed investing precedes him. See what it did there? With early bets on DoorDash and Instacart and Figma and the like. So you know Semil, you know what his resume is, you know Mike's situation. Please give a warm welcome, a big round of applause. Come on, get it going. This is exciting. The moment you came here for, the men of the hour, your friends of mine, Michael Mignano and Semil Shah.
What's up? Thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Give it up for Scott Rogowsky. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. We are excited to be here. I'm really excited you're here because I thought you were going to miss it. Semil had told me a few days ago that he was going to take the red eye in because he was going to go to the Dodgers Toronto game last night. And then I saw that it went till like 3 a.m. So I was like, how did you make your flight after the game last night? But you skipped the game.
I don't know if anyone watched that, but I was having this idea if Shohei was going to pitch last night, I would go to LA and then go over here. But I ended up watching the game in my hotel room until 3 a.m.
I was like convinced that this was not happening tonight because you were stuck in LA.
I mean, I don't know if anyone watched that game, but it was like one of the best single baseball games I've ever seen played.
It was pretty long.
Yeah. Pretty long.
I think like the one good thing about baseball is it's gotten shorter.
Except last night.
Except last night. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the longest games ever. I'm really excited actually to talk to you about sports. I know everyone in this room probably wants to hear us talk about AI and seed investing.
We'll get there.
But we'll get there. I do actually want to talk about sports a little bit. I think there is a connection here. I think sports, again, with the exception of last night being the longest game ever, I think sports are awesome right now. I think like every sport, every season, it feels like there's constantly like wow, did you see last night's game? Like it's constantly like the best game ever. I don't know why that is. Viewership is also at an all-time high. And I have to imagine it has something to do with gambling and betting, but
I think it's keeping terrestrial TV and satellite networks up. This is what we orient to on Sundays or on Tuesdays and Thursdays with the NBA or on major weekends for tennis and golf and baseball postseason. I mean, it's the last thing that keeps us connected to those channels.
So you just feel like that's the only thing that people are actually watching on classic television anymore. And so we feel like it's...
I think that's why all the big tech companies are going after that real estate, because it's guaranteed viewership and you get all the telemetry and you can serve ads against it. I mean, you think about a company like Amazon going after the Thursday football, they can just serve way more personalized ads just on a Thursday and it's nothing for them. They just have to buy the rights for Thursday.
Do you feel like it also has to do with the fact that like, what else is there to watch on traditional television if not sports?
I mean, going back to Scott, what is the appointment time viewing? You had kind of Game of Thrones or like the Sunday HBO slot. And, you know, it's being sort of attacked. There's very few slots left. Sports owns a lot of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What did you make of this NBA scandal thing? We said we were going to talk about it, but I actually don't know what you think of it.
Yeah, so it's come up a lot too in discussions because like a lot of my investor friends are also interested in sports and founders, and so it comes up in popular culture. But I remember when I started investing, I was a venture partner first with Bullpen and then with GGV over like a 5-year period. And Bullpen was a lead seed investor in FanDuel. So I met Nigel very early. And then GGV was a lead seed investor in DraftKings. And they basically fought each other for years. So I had like kind of a dual ringside seat to both of that. And basically you could see at that time that the leagues and the networks we're trying to figure out a way in a regulatory sense to normalize this because the amount of revenue.
Normalize like gambling and betting.
Yeah, because the amount of revenue that we're coming in, obviously, like that's no surprise to anyone, but it's really the engagement leading up to the game, post game, and then in the off season that would drive it. So if you're running a league or running a team, you have a 3-month off season, 6-month off season, whatever. You can engage your fan base more with some sort of gambling, right? Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's going to be the starting pitching rotation, and so forth and so forth. So it was basically a deal with the devil there that the die was cast.
Well, it's not just pregame and postgame. It's prop bets mid-game too, right? It's like, how many points will this person score? Will they get a touchdown in the second quarter? All that. And you can bet on these things in real time now.
Yeah, I mean, all of it is there, and sort of the opportunities are endless, and now it's even being validated by some of the best VC and investor brands, some of the greatest financial institutions. Like it's sort of crossed over into that point.
Yeah, but this, to bring it back to this NBA thing, like it does feel like there's kind of like trouble brewing, right? It's like permeated the culture so much such that like it's making its way to the players. Obviously, you've got the scandal, but also after the scandal, I saw all these tweets and these quotes from players that they're constantly harassed on Twitter after the games because they fucked up somebody's prop bet. Like it's really starting to wreak some havoc.
I mean, it was to be expected, right? When the iPhone came out, everyone was saying like, oh my God, addictive behavior, blah, 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 children, this and that. And of course, like we're all, the screen time app, everyone knows what I'm going to say, so I don't need to say it. But I think the derivative effects of that are like other addictive behaviors that you can do on your addictive device. You're not multiplying the impact, you're exponentially increasing the impact. So somebody could be day trading at the same time that they're doing sports prop bets during the game, the same time they're trading crypto and, other things I can't say on stage, right? That can all happen in the same session.
It feels like it is happening. It feels like it is happening also with like the same group of people. It feels like there's like this broader kind of degeneracy culture among young people. How do I like get rich quick on either, gambling or crypto or stock trading or like it's all bundled
I really
up.
hate to do this because we didn't plan this, but we actually invested in the company against this thesis. Yeah.
Really?
If I can plug that.
Oh, so you're going to talk your book here. Classic VC.
15 seconds. Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
go for it.
But there's a founder in New York named Elliot who basically started this company called Birch's Health, starting around this idea of online sports gambling and online day trading and everything else fill in the blank that we could talk about or can't talk about on stage. Yeah, it's doing really well.
Like a support type thing for people.
Starts with support.
Yeah, I got it. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Thematically, it makes sense. I mean, I do, as much as it worries me, right? I'm a parent, you're a parent, we're all worried about like what happens to our kids. I do find it interesting. And I think this notion of markets around everything is super interesting. We're in New York, obviously home to, I think, a newly minted decacorn Polymarket. Polymarket's fascinating. I'm finding myself increasingly visiting Polymarket for everything, whether it's like obviously the New York City mayoral election, last night's game. I'm literally looking at it during the game. It's fascinating.
To me, and I think a lot of people here would probably agree, like, thank God it's here. And also like it was inevitable. And the question was just when. My own personal opinion. But I think the difference is maybe you were following a certain election or a certain political issue or a certain financial market, or you were following a certain sports team, and you would read a blog and there would be all these ads served to you, and there'd be somebody who's been given a position to write about the game or write about your Mets or write about somebody else's team. And now you can actually see who's doing all this stuff, who's making predictions, who's right and has a track record over it. So I think it's just a future of media, but it has a different sort of marketplace dynamic to it.
Yeah, and I do wonder a bit what else will run through prediction markets. Obviously, investing could be one. We should talk about that, but there could be many other categories that prediction markets can touch.
Yeah, I think anything that's like a top 1,000 internet traffic mobile app or site, where it's a top-down editorial model is threatened by this, because new people can emerge and they'll have better distribution. And I absolutely think it can, start it with sports and sort of politics, where you have like consequences that you can measure. But I think that can absolutely go into investing, and for folks in the room here and what we do, absolutely go into venture. For sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. This is one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about. Seed investing in general, I would say, is somewhat under attack. And we should talk about this, like all the different ways it is. Accelerators, big firms coming in, strategic sources of capital. It's getting harder and harder. I think it's getting harder and harder at every stage, but seed is not immune. But prediction markets could be a key way it could be under attack, right? I mean, things could get funded this way. Right?
I think you're already seeing pieces of this in Bloomberg Beta, where, we have friends for years. They were doing a founder scoring survey and just investing off of that. Chamath, in his social capital days, pre-pandemic, had a capital allocation program where they would run an algorithm and give people $250K to $500K.
That's right. I remember that.
Off the bat. Naval did a version of this. You could argue AngelList was a 0.01 of a prediction market in terms of investing. So this stuff has been sort of bubbling up. And if you ask me from 10 years from now, will the next investor emerge on AngelList or through a Polymarket for seed investing, I would definitely take a Polymarket bet.
Got it. So this idea where kind of the community is sort of voting with their feet which startups should make it and which shouldn't.
You already see that behavior amongst junior folks in VC. For years, they would have synonymous accounts on Twitter and basically say, oh, my partnership passed on Uber, and be like, I advocated for it. And they would show that, to their next potential employer. So that's Polymarket behavior.
So like, how does this actually manifest? I mean, there's probably like this whole rat's nest of regulatory stuff that I feel like you and I should not even touch. We're just not smart enough for that. But like, how in practice would this happen, that prediction markets could take over seed investing or investing in general?
I'm just thinking about early stage, because the capital at risk is lower, and we can talk about the other threats.
That's a good point.
But I think it would be that same person who created that fake Twitter account to say, look at all the deals I brought my firm, and they, crapped on it, and we didn't do any. And, here's a timestamp record. You could just port that over to Polymarket. Now, the question is, do you tie it to your identity or not? Maybe that's just a feature question. And then it's like, do you actually put money against it? This is what Naval was doing when he started. This is how I got started. Naval
tell us more.
People. Oh,
I don't know this story.
It started with a blog because they were entrepreneurs, and in their mind, they got screwed by their investors. So they started a blog called Angel Hacks or something like that. And it sort of took off, and then he wanted to turn it into a product. I'm compressing a lot of the history, but they basically turned it into a platform where they wanted to take angels and super angels and let them take money from other people, roll it up into a mini fund or an SPV, and invest in companies. When I got to meet, I knew Naval, for 15 years. And so he knew I was trying to get into investing and do this. So he basically took, 9 figures plus from a sovereign wealth fund that I can't name on stage, but you have a 10% chance of guessing, and basically picked 4 people and told those sovereign wealth funds back anything they do. So I was one of those 4.
Wow.
He was basically saying, effectively, here are 4 characters in this prediction market. You have no idea how to allocate 100K rounds, $1 million rounds, $5 million rounds. Let these 4 people do it and go see what it turns into.
All right. So now, how does that turn into prediction markets?
You basically make it so that Naval only picked 4, but why did he only pick 4?
Totally just decentralize the whole
now,
model.
The problem is that the feedback loop on the actual return could take 5 to 7 years or even longer. So what you'd probably want to do is have earlier signals around follow-on rate, quality of co-investors, the thing LPs try to do but can't really do at scale. But I think if you talk to 100 sophisticated LPs and said, would you would you look at a portfolio of 1,000 managers who were on Polymarket that had a track record over 3 years as a litmus or sort of gating function for you to evaluate a manager to put capital behind? I think 100 of them would say yes.
So, okay, so markets is a way that this whole thing can get disrupted. But you and I were talking a little bit backstage. Again, this whole class seems like it's somewhat under attack. Like, as somebody who's been investing in seed now for a long time, over many vintages, like, where are you feeling the pressure these days? Like, what sources of capital?
I'll summarize where, like, I feel like all of our therapy is done in group text chats, right? So where is it coming from? I think right now, today, you have larger funds post-COVID who have machines to go after and cover a lot more area, and they're price insensitive. We all feel that. Post-COVID, post-correction, a lot of LPs were rebalancing their portfolio and going into smaller funds. And then you have the accelerators. I have a close friend who's been in seed as long as me who said accelerators are eating seed. That's what he just said. They're eating seed and turning it into that. So it's really under attack, I think, and very very challenging right now, because in the past there was a smaller denominator and people didn't want to take on that risk. But now, since the cost of capital has gone down and the stakes have gone up, it's turned like what used to be a craft business into a cost center for larger investors.
Right. So what do you do about it?
I can only answer for me and for Haystack, which is you can control the design of your fund and the inputs and the strategy. So the design of the fund is to be small and do more vintages over a period of time to keep the fund size small. So instead of having a 3 or 4 year fund, we do a 2-year fund. You can limit your fund size so that is like the ultimate governor on behavior. In the same way we would tell a startup, hey, you only need 2 million, but if you raise 4 million, you're going to spend the 4 million as fast as you spend the 2 million. The same thing applies with VCs. And then finally is trying to make sure that you meet people that align with your interests and how you want to work. And it takes a lot more work, but I still, and maybe I'm talking my, sweet nothings to myself, but I still believe that, like, people we meet don't want to work with a big firm early. They don't want to go to an accelerator and be part, like, the 100th startup in the batch. And they want to work with someone who will pick up the phone and, like, tell them something they don't want to hear. That's for their benefit. You have to pick your spots more. That's just my reaction to it. I'd be curious how you respond to it with, you're sitting at a bigger fund, you're doing things cross stage.
Yeah. I mean, we as a big fund, we historically, Sweet Spot had probably been, like any other big platform, more like Series A and beyond. We've always done seed. I personally am feeling attention to do seed more because I think, given the pace and the rate at which many of these valuations get out of control, oftentimes with no real new evidence at, say, a Series B or a Series C that things are working, right? There's just momentum. To combat that, you just got to go earlier, right? And so I have definitely been feeling the pull, and I know some of my partners have as well, to go earlier and do more seed. And the way I've been doing it is really just for a variety of factors, which we should also unpack, is betting on people, like betting on great people. There's a great founder, somebody that's doing something really interesting, and because of their background or their experience, we truly, truly believe that they can do what they say they can. Great. Give them a couple $1,000,000. Whereas I think previously, especially as a product builder myself, I would always go sort of like product strategy brain. How does this thing play out in this market, and what's this market going to look like, and how do they build this thing? Now I'm just like, this person's great. They'll figure it out. Write them a check.
If you had $60 million to spend in a year, would you do I'm just making up numbers, but like one $30 million check in something that's working and take the rest of the 30 million and just sprinkle it across 6 to 7 seed investments?
I can't give you the exact amount, but I would do more seed. I would do more seed, and then, ideally concentrate and double down on the ones that show life.
Right. And then given that you know that from your seat, how would you guide other seed investors on how to operate in that kind of world?
I would ask you that. I'll
question. Answer it. Don't worry.
Because my guess is that's what you do already, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for the audience's sake, Semil and I have gotten to know each other very, very well. I consider you obviously not only a friend, but a bit of a mentor when it comes to investing. And from the day I met you, the thing I noticed about you is you are very, very people driven. Like, I hope you don't mind me revealing this, but some of your first meetings with founders, you're not even doing Zoom, you're not doing pitch decks, you're doing phone call to like really get to know the person. And I have found that to be a very, very useful tool as well. And so my guess is that's how you do it and how other seed funds do it. But I don't know. I mean, we're in a room full of them right now.
I mean, I obviously know a lot of people in the room. I think what makes the seed market really fun is that people have different strokes for different folks. And so there's different ways of doing it, and there's no right way to practice venture. In term, like, I can only speak for myself, and my partner Ashay, has a different sort of bent towards this. But for me, I think about the weighting of making a decision is like the classic example. Sorry to like use a generic example, but it's like, you have the jockey, you have the horse, and you have the track. And for me, it's just like the order, like all those three have to line up, but it's really the order in which those things line up and the weighting you put on them. And the weighting may change based on the environment. So for me, I can't really get personally excited unless I'm excited about the jockey.
Yeah.
Then when I get excited about the jockey, but then I'm not excited about either the horse or the racetrack, those are the tough conversations where I'm like, ugh. And I have to do a pass email or have a difficult conversation either internally or externally. But when those things line up, it becomes very, very easy. And I've been doing that for 13 plus years. So generally, it's relatively easy for me to deduce that. What's changed in this environment, and I'd love to hear how you approach it, is that the racetrack is changing frequently. It's going from muddy to dry to, whatever analogy you want to stretch. And the horse that the jockey is riding will be under attack from multiple venues and like a lot faster. And so I think the bar for somebody that you fund actually goes up. So the weighting goes up on the person. So the three matter, but at the end of the day, like I just personally don't want to wake up every day and look at decks and metrics and demos. That doesn't excite me. What excites me is like conversation. And I think I actually steal something from academia. Like when you get a graduate degree or a PhD or like an advanced degree, and you have to go in front of your peers and sort of elders and explain what you're doing over 3, 5, 6 hours without really any notes, that shows like some level of mastery or work that you've done. And I like that. And so that's why I start a lot of conversations on the phone, because I want to see like, what is your phone manner? How do you handle yourself? And go into like a conversation. I think what's challenging now and what I struggle with is that founders are like, oh, I'm going to raise in 2 weeks. And, they'll ask me 20 minutes into the call, like, are you interested? And I'm like, oh, I wish that was happening in other parts of my life. But it's just like, it's just people's expectations for pace are fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The racetrack analogy. I love this analogy, by the way. I feel like there needs to be some
which analogy?
The jockey and the horse and the racetrack. I feel like we need some like infographic or something for that. No, the racetrack analogy is interesting. You mentioned you feel like it's changing. I definitely feel that. And again, as somebody who used to think about products and markets predominantly, sometimes more than people, I'm finding myself in many cases throw the racetrack out the window because everything's different, right? There used to be these categories, these product areas, these markets where you would say, oh, you can't bet on that market. That's a terrible market, or that's a terrible surface area to build in. And now because of AI, I don't know. I don't think you can predict anything anymore. I remember.
I think it's totally valid.
I feel like browsers was a category that I was like, oh, browsers. Unless you're Google, forget it. You'll never get distribution. And now I'm kicking myself that I didn't. Shout out to browser company, Pace Capital in the house. I think I wish I did that or I tried to do that because obviously they had a great outcome and the browser's becoming the new operating system. So I just don't think. anyone who like thinks they know what markets or what surface areas are going to be relevant in 5 years from now, I think is totally delusional.
Generally, what I've found is that there are two things in a deal, whether it's a seed fund or a larger fund, where the market ends up killing them. One is that in a seed fund, you worry about the category risk you take on for follow-on financing. So you may say, oh, this person is raising, I don't know, I'm making something up that's just crazy.
Okay.
And it sounds really cool, but who will fund this next? Because you're taking on the risk and someone else has to take on the risk.
So you were only thinking sort of one raise at a time.
Well, I'm giving you the two like market pushbacks that I think people use to kill deals.
Okay.
Okay. So you may want to do something at a seed fund and someone just says, well, who's going to fund it next? At a larger fund, it's absolutely weaponized to kill other people's deals. What's been the historical outcome in that market? What's been the historical outcome in the market? And literally that comes back to the jockey where it's like, despite whatever the person in the seed fund said or the person at the large fund did to kill your deal, that person has a cult of personality or force field around them that you just know they'll get it done. And otherwise your capital is at risk.
What's a good example of that you've done throughout your storied career? Oh, shit category, but I love this. This person's going to make it happen, and so we'll bet.
Well, I won't use like a famous example, but I'll use one now that's like in sort of a gray period. But I don't know if any of you were investors in or met Ridwell, kid out of Seattle. It's a offline recycling startup. But this entrepreneur is extremely magnetic, authentic. Literally every investor he's met has been like, one of the best founders I've met. One of the best founders I met. And he just constantly generates that feedback. So he buys himself more time and goodwill and capital, even if it's not at the price that he wants, to continue to go. And I would rather take a bet on him than some investor saying, I don't believe it's going to happen.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I've made two seed bets in particular recently where 2 years ago, I probably would have passed because of the category. So I think it totally makes sense. The other thing I think a lot about, and I'm having a hard time navigating, I'm sure everyone in this room is as well, especially at the app layer, and we talked a little bit about this downstairs earlier, is kind of the OpenAI effect. I mean, clearly they're willing to play in any space, and they've proven now multiple times that they can play to win in any space. So that's another thing that I think has made it challenging to evaluate deals. It's just the competitive.
Yeah, I mean,
angle.
at seed, we don't really have the luxury of that.
Right.
I think there are certain things that are right in the crosshairs, but like no one knows what Sam and team are going to do. And that's just sort of a risk. And it kind of goes back to, 10 years ago, would Google or Facebook do it? Now it's what OpenAI and Anthropic do it. The problem is that these teams Google and Facebook are executing pretty well, but we're asleep at the wheel on certain things. I don't think these companies are asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, not anymore.
And, they're less than 10 years old or maybe 10 years old. So I just think it's a very, very tricky time. And also, like, having done this for a long time, there are certain companies that are on a public track where they're going to go public. And then there are other companies that get acquired. And you can't really predict who's going to get acquired. It is kind of random. And some of the acquisitions that people will pat you on the back for, you internally know that you're like, there wasn't much there, right? It's not really a fair merit-based outcome.
We talked a little bit about accelerators. Has that affected you and Haystack at all? I mean, it feels like there are more of them. Do they make you change kind of how you think about deal economics?
For sure. I mean, everyone in this room who's a seed investor is effectively a de facto follow-on pawn for accelerators. Right? I mean, that's what it is. And they go in at X post money and you go in at 3 to 10X post money. That's what it is. When the batch sizes were small and there was time to meet and the valuations were different. And again, I'm not like complaining about valuations, but there was an argument to be made that you should do it. But right now it's like a marketing game. And if the accelerators find the founders early and get them into their kind of fishing net early, and then you're just a follow-on investor to it. You're just being sold a product. I've always felt that, and I respect how people are playing the game because it's a marketing game. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I struggle with it personally because that's not how I navigate or move through the world. I still believe that there are founders who don't want to start their companies that way, but you have to be more patient to find them. I also think that a lot of these companies where they're like kind of factory churning these things out, as investors, if you're taking capital from, family offices or your friends and family or institutions, like you have to stand behind every decision you make, and if you're just following on top of accelerators, I don't know, like the LP, like all those LPs can invest in all those accelerators, believe me.
Right. And, it feels like this could creep into other rounds as well. I'm sure you saw Dalton from YC just launched like a Series A version of YC. I'm sure others will pop up, which will then squeeze kind of the economics in that category as well.
Yeah, to me, it's just like the marketing piece, which is like if you think of the model of one of these accelerators, it is capital intensive up front. But if you find something early, if you find a couple of things early per batch with 10% ownership, it makes up for it.
Yeah.
And so it becomes kind of a marketing game. There are a lot of LPs who will not invest in accelerators based on they don't believe in the index. And then there are a lot of LPs who will also just say, I can't meet everybody in this room.
Just index.
Just index. And maybe I catch a tiger by the tail.
Yeah. So we're in New York. One thing I'm curious about is like all these dynamics that we're talking about, seed under pressure, under fire, accelerators, markets, et cetera. How do you think it differs between being in the Bay versus being here? I mean, you spent a lot, you're based in the Bay, but you spent a lot of time here. And so I feel like you've probably
try to pretend I live here.
Yeah, you definitely do.
I think the seed investors who are here and located here, even if they're popping over to the Bay Area every month to do their thing and staying in New York, they're a bit insulated for what's happening in the Bay Area. And so that's to your collective advantage, I think.
What do you mean by that though? They're competing for the same deals. New York investors don't just invest in New York.
I don't believe that all the accelerators and all the large funds and all the other people playing in the space can cover all the amazing founders that are coming to New York.
Ah, okay. You're saying New York investors have a New York home field advantage.
Even if they have an office and a shingle and a happy hour and you name it, they can't do it.
I agree with that.
Look at Nick Churl. Nick is only in Brooklyn. Like none of these firms and none of these accelerators are going to go into Brooklyn. Of course, those founders can go apply and go do all that stuff, but a certain founder is just going to go to Nick.
Right.
That's his opportunity.
Yeah, you know when you're living in a neighborhood and an ecosystem, like you just have that sort of institutional knowledge about who's building stuff that you just won't be able to see from Affinity or one of these. I
believe that.
Harmonic, it won't bubble up.
I believe that, and I also think that there are enough there could be 3 founders on the block, and one wants to go to an accelerator, one just wants the logo of a big fund, and one wants to work with Nick.
It's no surprise then, I guess, that like there are accelerators launching here, right? Like SBC has an office here. I think SBC is actually here tonight. Mm-hmm. There are other accelerators launching in New York. BetaWorks has always done a good job with their camps. Like we're probably going to see more accelerators in New York.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I think if you take it from the founder point of view and forget us investors, like it's actually better because if you go raise venture capital and you raise $3-5 million, you could be searching for a problem to solve for years, rotting away your prime years. We all have startups in our portfolio that overraise and you're like, just return the capital and go like do something with yourself. Versus like if you're in an accelerator or in one of these things and it doesn't work and you have all the peer pressure. So I don't want to poo-poo them. Like it's probably valid. It's like, hey, you didn't make it or your demo day sucked or like your product sucked or you didn't raise money. Like, sorry, bye. It's probably valuable.
Yeah. All right, we gotta hit the audience tip line in a few, but before we do that, just a couple like questions for you before we hit the tip
questions
line.
For me.
Yeah. So number one, I know you hate this topic. That's just why I want to talk to you about it.
Oh no.
The bubble topic. What do you make of all the bubble talk? We're in a bubble. We're not in a bubble. The market's going to crash. It's going to fuck up investing.
My only answer to I don't comment on that stuff because I feel like I have no idea. But the only comment I would make is that I usually answer this question by just saying, what are random little factoid stories that have popped into my inbox or text?
Okay,
Or
tell
in
us.
real life. Somebody told me recently that they were competing on a seed deal with another seed investor in the Bay Area, and that seed investor who won the round, this is a sub $200 million fund, flew the founder to Hawaii to win the deal.
Wow.
That's one.
So that's bubble signal?
Well, that's one of like 100 signals.
Give me, let's hear more.
One afternoon, 3 people in Jackson Square, San Francisco, told me that they saw Rick Rubin on the street. And then at night, I opened my Instagram and I saw Gary with Rick Rubin,
Wow.
and I was like, wow. So like I
Bubble?
literally
Is that a
could
bubble
go
sign?
on for hours.
Any gifts? Any like gifts?
Oh, like the deal gifts and stuff? No.
Have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever tried to really wow a founder and, I don't know, send them a gift, have a really famous person call them, put them on a plane? Have you ever done anything like that?
No. That would be kind of fun though, but no, I've never done that. I'm trying to think of anything to top those two. Honestly, like Rick Rubin and a private flight to Hawaii at Seed is nuts.
What do you think about? I've heard about this move. I'm not naming names because I actually don't know who they are, but I've heard about a move. Some funds they don't let the founder leave until they sign the term sheet. Like they corner them in an office. Like somebody wants to be that smothered.
I don't think that happens at Seed. I think that's like big fund stuff where it's like there's a competitive dynamic and you have your peer set of funds, and there's a lot of sort of like jungle dynamics.
That's kind of creepy, right?
No, at Seed, it's like we're like, we meet a founder. They have 4 term sheets, but they really want to meet you. And I'm always like, take one of the 4, and like, give me a call, and like, I'll help you choose between the 4. So it's just like, it definitely feels like there's a lot of, I don't even know what a bubble is anymore, because I think a lot of us use AI and it's really cool and it invades other parts of our life. But I think that like, what I come back to is like an old, very wise LP I met when I started investing just said, as an LP, when you're investing, you want capital to be tight and time to be abundant. But when time is tight and capital is abundant, is a terrible time to invest. And right now it does feel like that. And this person told me this 13 years ago.
Wow.
So it feels like that. And then we all hear the little stories. I mean, we could move the mic across this entire room and everyone have a story about my Rick Rubin story. I'm pretty convinced.
All right. Another topic that, enough bubble talk. Another topic that you love. What's the fascination with roll-ups?
I think the roll-up AI idea solves a couple problems. If I'm thinking about it from like company creation point of view, is like, how do I get warm bodies who are already working on a project, or maybe different groups of warm bodies working on a project that I can integrate, so I don't have to hire. So solve the hiring problem. 2, I think it's solving the software like legacy sort of like problem, which is sort of obvious, right? Which is like, hey, these things are in silos and they're not modern. I think it also solves a distribution and customer acquisition problem. So you can, I could keep kind of going along.
It's easy to tell the story.
It's very easy to tell the story. I think where the rubber meets the road, and I actually have some more personal, not work experience here, but like all my friends, when I moved to New York after college, by the way, I lived here after college. I know how to live here. And all my friends and all my roommates were in private equity. And I saw everything that they did. And these are really smart people. And I think the bet is, can VC tech firms put the technology together in a way to like harmonize all those things and eke out a profit versus the folks who've been doing it who are not tech native on the other end. I think my money is on the old PE folks, because I think it's a grind business. It is a spreadsheet business. Will there be somebody who figures out an AI roll-up? Yes, but it feels like the topic du jour. I'm not really sure they'll be able to figure it out.
It also just seems, I mean, it seems hard to change the culture, the DNA of any organization. I mean, think about like when startups get acquired and how it often ruins those teams because the culture can't change. Now we're talking about taking these really old school businesses, I don't know, local trades, plumbing businesses, and saying, adopt AI. It just seems hard.
But I think the theory of it actually, the
theory
problem
makes
with
total
it,
sense.
the theory makes a lot of sense and is quite seductive. The problem is in the operations and the change management and like blending a leadership group and doing all that stuff. And these folks have been eking out 2 to 3 to 4x returns for decades. And I think, will somebody break through and create a 10x return doing it? Yes. It won't really move the portfolio. You know, that's really the punchline. But beyond that, like, I just don't think, I think a lot of them, it's a valiant effort, but I don't think it'll work.
All right, last one. What are you excited by with Seed? I mean, there's so much uncertainty. It's a new era for investing, given AI and everything we talked about. Like, what are you excited by? What are you optimistic by, especially as we close out the year?
Yeah, I always say this, and like I think especially for folks in the audience here, who a lot of whom are like good friends and stuff, we have the best job in the world.
It's a fun job.
Investors, yeah. So let's not lose sight of that. And also, I'm sure you would all agree, like, we could bitch about accelerators or big funds or corporates or people raising rounds in 2 weeks, but there are founders who want to figure out and care about who their investors. They're there. So if you're patient and not being, you know, sort of subsumed by the noise, they're there. We all have a lot of founders here we work with. To me, that's the most exciting part. Is like, you know, sometimes I go to dinner parties and people ask me like, what do you do? And I tell them about this startup, that startup. Those aren't my ideas. I could never come up with those ideas. Those are people coming up with those ideas. And we get to like be a small little part of the story, not to sound romantic about it, but that's a great job.
The job is still a lot of fun.
I think the job is still a lot of fun. And I just don't believe that all the best creators and all the best outcomes are going to flow through these things we've been talking about.
Yep.
I really don't believe that. You could even look at some of the great like current hot companies. Like one of my friends who had been at Founders Fund for a long time was telling me how they met Zach Frankel. Now this guy is like mythic legend here. Like everyone knows who he is. Probably no one's met him, right? He was an intern there at Founders Fund. And they were just like, yeah, you're smart. You're an intern here. And then he was like, I'm going to start some companies with my friends. And they're like, cool, we'll fund them at seed investing.
It's cool.
That's all it took. All that opportunity is available to us. There's no special reason that Founders Fund was able to do that. They just didn't ask too many dumb questions.
That's the key.
Totally.
Yeah, that's the failure mode. Don't ask dumb questions. Speaking of dumb questions, anyone have any? Or good questions?
That was one of your best
those too.
segues.
Yeah, I don't know how I pulled that one off.
So you guys talked in the beginning about these prediction markets, Polymarket, Kalshi, and others. How can they be manipulated? Like I was reading somewhere that, the famous New Yorker Bill Ackman was talking about that somebody's manipulating the prediction markets in favor of Mamdani. Because they're buying and selling at the wrong time, it doesn't make any sense. So there's a coordinated effort to show that Mamdani's already won or whatever. But the point is that can be done for a lot of other things that are being predicted. Because, there was one time there was this idea that, the meme stock buyers could flood the market and drive companies into bankruptcy. So why would prediction markets be any different? Like, will money, again, screw up something nice that we would like to have, but we can't have?
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I think we should be quick to declare prediction markets as the ultimate, predictor of like I feel like the narrative right now on Twitter is like prediction markets no, f the polls, the markets no, and I feel like we've already anointed them as being 100% perfect and right. I think this is a great point that they're going to be flawed, and I think they're going to be abused just like anything else.
This is pretty far out of my zone of competency, but the only thing I thought about when you were asking the question, and there might be someone here who has like more facility with kind of financial markets, but that could you get, shorts or other kind of people in this market that you can start to manipulate it and use social media on top of it? I have no clue how that'll manifest. But I mean, I would
seems
imagine
obvious
the
that's
behavior,
going to happen.
The behavior you've seen between public stock markets, social media, and shorts will happen in prediction markets. Feels like a natural consequence.
Besides comments on the seed market, any comments on venture like A, B, and then separately on growth, just given your respective apertures?
Yeah, I'll do 30 seconds
Okay.
on mine, but you really sit there. I think for seed investors, Varun, like for us, what used to be an A round or a B round has kind of bifurcated between, are you a 2-year-old or younger native AI company that's growing from 0 to 17 million of revenue in 5 months or not? And I don't really know what happens next because this is just unprecedented time. And I'm of two minds. I think there are a bunch of people I know and respect who are like, I only want to see that. So Varun, if you don't bring that to me, you better fund it yourself or find another investor. Or some of you were here, Michelle, I don't know if you're still here, but we were at a dinner with a bunch of investors earlier in this month in San Francisco. And an investor I really respect, who you're on the board with of many companies, said that for a check under 20 million at his firm, he has anyone who brings a deal to the partnership, they cannot make any quantitative argument in favor of the deal. I don't want to see data. I don't want to see metrics. I don't want to see comps. Tell me why you like the product. Tell me why you like the founder. Tell me why you like the space. And I'll tell you afterwards who he is, but he's someone you would respect. So I think people are of two minds right now. And in terms of growth, I don't know, and I'll kick it over to you, but my view is like founders who are in the market for growth capital, it's literally like an IPO process. It's like, I'm going to create a process, give me the best term sheet, show me your platform, blah, 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 blah. And I don't really give a shit.
I think at the growth stage, obviously there were a lot of deals that are happening in very, very quick succession. I would say for a while, it seemed like diligence was maybe lighter than it previously had been. I think that was like the sort of read on the market in general. I do think that is changing. I think the reality is, we talked about it a little bit about earlier, that these deals were happening so quickly and so much capital is being deployed. And in many cases, nothing was getting proven out for many of these companies, right? Like Series A would happen, and then a Series B growth round and Series C growth round would happen within months, and nothing else being de-risked. I don't necessarily think there's been like a falling out, and we've seen a bunch of companies, go belly up. But I do think it creates this dynamic of pacing where it's like, okay, we probably should slow down a little. We don't actually know how things are going to play out. OpenAI is being really aggressive. Anthropic is being, is generating a ton of revenue in the enterprise. So I just think the way that will manifest itself is, I predict that growth will start to feel a little more normal. There will be a higher bar. Some of the companies that I work with have gone out to raise growth rounds, and it does feel like the processes are getting a little more rigorous than they were. I think at Series A stage, I mentioned earlier this Dalton thing. I think if there's more capital entering the market, more and more folks are going to try to find different vectors to compete on. Clearly, like price and marketing is a way to do it. We spoke about the accelerators earlier. So I have to believe that Dalton's new fund is the start of a trend that maybe will increasingly work its way up to later and later rounds.
Sorry, just last thing. I love Dalton.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work.
I don't know, man. I know I don't know. Well,
I like Dalton a lot. He's very smart and great kid. I think doing it in a batch process is not how the A rounds happen. And I do think there's enough A players to do a round, or insiders do a round, that there'll be a lot of adverse selection. And I hate to say that because I like Dalton, but it's just more a comment on the strategy. I don't think it works at that part of the capital stack.
The reason I think it can is because I think it's getting easier and easier to start a company. And so you have more and more founders and startups than ever before. And I think those A players you're talking about, they can only do so many deals. And so there's just a lot more startup supply. And I think many of them, per your point, maybe it is adverse selection, won't be able to get the attention of a Lightspeed or an Andreessen.
But I think that's the job of the founder. So like when they start with the 300,000, 3 million, 6 million, whatever the number there is, at certain point they need a logo in order to hire, get customers and do that stuff. And yes, will something slip through the cracks? Yes. But I think over a series of funds and that, I think the terrain is too baked for that to work. Anyway, that's just my point of view.
Yeah, we'll see. I just think if you have a lot of capital and you don't have, not every founder can get to these people, and there's a lot more founders, they're going to find new ways to get it. And then I worry it puts pressure on
What the larger funds should do is take Dalton's approach and make it like an online college application for Series A.
Yeah, but then then the firms have to compete with his deal economics as well, and it throws off fund construction.
But most of those funds in a competitive deal will take 10%.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Hey guys, so Semil, you've built your own firm. Mike, you sold a company, now working at Lightspeed. What are your respective proudest moments in your careers?
I'm usually driven by like paranoia and fear, which isn't related to pride. But I think like one of a few prideful moments for me is just, I mean, you probably all experience this, is like a founder you spend time on that you pass on, that sends you their friends to look at for investment. I feel like is a great compliment. You know, that's one I would cite.
I have two, but they're sort of related. Building a startup, obviously, having it work out, acquisition, whatever, it's obviously great. It's a special moment. But I think the aspect of that thing that really has stuck with me the most, and where I maybe got the most fulfillment of that experience, was the impact that it had on the team and the individuals. Like, these acquisition deals, I mean, many of you probably have been involved with them. They can go south. They can rip a company apart. They can tear it down. But when it goes well, and you can like pull each individual employee aside and be like, hey, we're getting acquired, and like, here's what it means for you, and for it to mean so much for that person, that's really, really special. And then to see them go on and do really interesting things at the acquiring company, or go on to be CEOs of their own company, like, that's really cool. I don't know. I feel proud about that stuff.
So you guys talked about prediction markets earlier, and then you went on to talk about all of the capital that's coming into seed, how every single person in this room does seed investing, how there's an accelerator. Isn't that a prediction market? Aren't we already living in a prediction market? Or to what degree are we missing aspects of and by the way, are they accurate?
So to me, the prediction market comes to the benefit in that you're right, but it comes to the benefit of two entities of that, is the LP capital that would fund the next Matt Hartman, or the larger fund that would hire you. Typically it's been like, oh, I'm going to recruit at MIT, Sloan, and Stanford Business School, and blah blah blah. Or it's been an LP who will say, Matt, I love you, but like, get the Founders Fund GPs to tell me I should invest in you, and then I can move it through committee. What I was saying earlier was like the V0.01 version of that was AngelList. So Matt Hartman from 10 years ago could have gone on to AngelList like I did and just ripped a bunch of SPVs. The benefit to me was Naval basically handed me one of those 4 keys. Other people had to go collect and round up the capital. So now with prediction markets, you could go take that pseudonymous Twitter account, put it into a prediction market, and start to build like a better, more specific track record of what you thought.
Extremely efficient in real time,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And in a 2-3 year period, you could theoretically take that to, where's Eric? I'm going to call him out from, is Eric still here? There he is. He leads the YMCA endowment, retirement fund. And you could take him out for spicy Asian food and be like, here's my Polymarket. And I guarantee you he would listen.
But so is your argument that not enough people are on Polymarket? Because like every single one of us has a fund with a big track record and all the stuff we passed on and all the stuff we did, and we take it to them and we have that data. It's a limited group of people. It's not everybody.
It's still not verifiable in the same way. It's not time stamped. It's like, oh, I saw that deal, I could have done it.
Okay, so the data point of I would have said yes to this had I seen it is the thing that is missing.
It's a time stamp. It's a quantum of money in. It's a price in. All that.
And it's the ability for the community to get behind it, right? In real time.
Yeah, but at minimum, you could take the pseudonymous Twitter account to Eric, but it would be more interesting and probably advantageous for the next Matt Hartman to do it on a system like Polymarket. I mean, that's where AngelList is trying to go with what they're doing, right?
So hang out, get to know one another.
And thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you all
Like,
so
I
much.
hope it was interesting. Any feedback you have, even if it's like, you didn't enjoy something, tell me, please. Don't tell Mike, though.
And I also want to give a huge shout out and round of applause for everyone that's helped us pull this event off. Thank you so much. And thank all of you. Let's enjoy the night. Thanks for coming. Thanks so much for tuning into this special episode of Out of Office with Semil Shah. If you haven't already, please remember to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.